So I'm responding to the claim that the theater industry in the United States is declining in attendance and becoming less accessible to the majority of the population. The advocate's secondary claims were digital entertainment has adverse effects on attendance at plays and other theater productions. Economic factors have caused live theaters to be less accessible. And 3, cuts in arts education equals an unfamiliar youth in theater/arts entertainment. My 3 main claims that I'm going to be claiming are the main claim of the advocate is not an argument. 2, economic factors have little effect on the attendance of live theater. And 3, attendance of live performances is rising in certain areas. So my claim number 1 is the main claim of the advocate is not an argument. So to restate, the main claim was the theater industry in the United States is declining in attendance and is becoming less accessible to the majority of the population. So there are 2 things in this claim that don't make it an argument. Number 1, it goes against one of the rules in Brock-Reed's model of argumentation. There is no uncertainty in the argument, which is one of the 6 characteristics necessary for the triangle in the diagram. This means that there is no counterclaim because the claim can be proven by statistics and it can be proven by numbers that show an actual drop in attendance. And 2, it has 2 separate claims in the argument. This makes it unclear which claim that the advocate is claiming. They state that there's a decline in attendance and it is less accessible to the majority of the population. They are similar, but they are not the same. When I break these 2 rules, it doesn't make it an argument. Number 2, economic factors have little effect on attendance of live theater. So the advocate claimed that ticket prices went from $75 to $105 from the span of 2008 to the present year. When you account for inflation, which is roughly 2 to 3% depending on which economists you ask, the price that it would naturally go up to is around $90, give or take $1. According to a study done by the Stat Bureau using data released by the U.S. On the Consumer Price Index, inflation for the past 10 years has accumulated to 19.19%. When we do some math and then accumulate this annually, the price turns out to be around $90. This shrinks the gap from $30 to $15. This gap is cut in half, and when you take into consideration the demographic of people who attend these performances, which they tend to be, according to the study at Baruch University Weizmann Center for International Business, Broadway theater goers are quite affluent compared to the general United States population, reporting an average annual household income of $201,500. The average theater goer reportedly attends about 4 shows during the annual period. So this goes to show that theater goers tend to be more affluent, so this $15 gap does not affect them as much as it would say the average citizen who makes around $51,000 in the U.S. So claim number 3, attendance of live performances is rising in certain areas. So according to statistics by the Broadway League suggests that there is rising attendance. They claim that attendance from the year 2008 to 2009 season was 12.15 million, and the season from 2014 to 2015 season was 13.10 million. Also, according to David Ng, contact reporter for the Los Angeles Times, the 2013 to 2014 Broadway season featured 44 new productions, including 12 new musicals and 10 plays. Attendance for this period was 12.2 million, up 5.6% from last season. This goes to show that there actually is, in some parts, an increase in this attendance of these live theater performances. This trend is not necessarily stable. It does fluctuate, but over the span of what the advocate has claimed from 2008 to present, it has increased in Broadway, which is a large part of the United States theater industry. There is also a larger attendance of younger and foreign theater goers. Adam Hettrick, writer for the popular performing arts magazine Playbill, states that this season 2012 to 2013 attracted the highest percentage of theater goers aged 18 to 24, 14%, or 1.6 million admissions. Tourists accounted for 66% of all Broadway tickets sold, up 3% from 2011 to 2012 season. International tourists accounted for 23% of those attending Broadway shows, which equaled 2.6 million tickets. So this goes to show that there is in fact how do I say this? There is a larger attendance on these youth. Going back to one of the claims by the advocate, she claimed that cuts in art education equals an unfamiliar youth in theater /art entertainment. So using this data, it shows that there is actually a spike in attendance of these youth that actually go to these theaters. So this suggests a greater quality of performance despite the cuts in art education. To summarize, I responded to the claim that the theater industry in the United States is declining in attendance and is becoming less accessible to the majority of the population. And I refuted this using the main claim of the advocate is not an argument. Economic factors have little effect on the attendance of live theater, and attendance of live performances is rising in certain areas. Thank you.
All right, Jose, we talked about it before. I think you need to project a little bit more at the beginning of the speech because I think you've got kind of a quiet voice. I didn't even hear the first 3 sentences that you said. I couldn't make out what you were saying. So pause a little bit, look up, project, and then once we get used to it, I think we'll be drawn in a little bit more because I could understand everything you said after the first minute or so, but at first it was like, huh, what? And I was just trying to lean forward to catch what you were saying. Organizationally, it's pretty clear. I did notice that there was no response to the first of the supporting points that the advocate presented, so I'm not exactly sure if you can completely dismiss that, but it does seem like it's a chain of arguments. So the second and the third points, if you have adequate answers on that, then the first one maybe doesn't matter. I also like the idea that you challenge whether or not it is, in fact, an argument, and I thought your explanation on that was pretty good. You made a reasonable press on the first point, that there's no uncertainty. And on the second point, even though it's not really about whether or not it's an argument, it's about whether or not it conforms to our expectations about a proposition, I think there's an argument to be made that says, look, if you don't understand exactly what the claim means, or if it's going in different directions and you're not sure which one of those is the most important one, then there's enough ambiguity that you maybe want to hold off on it. I'm not sure, like I said, that it's an argument, that it's not an argument, but it is a good thing to present early on so that the audience has some reason to doubt what's being presented later. On the economic factors argument, I thought you had excellent research to support your position. I like the analysis, especially of the way you went after the inflation issue. And then finally, you finish it off with some really good information that suggests that most theater goers are relatively affluent anyway, which means they're unlikely to be bothered by that $10 differential that we're talking about, that increase in what's going on. Also, I think that one of the things that's maybe missing here is that there might be extra value that you get for that extra $10. I mean, shows maybe are more elaborate than they once were. They might provide more entertainment value. The idea that somebody's getting shortchanged because of increasing prices assumes that they're not getting something back. And I think that's a presupposition that the advocate made that maybe you could challenge a little bit. The third point I thought was, full of statistical information that it tries to address the issue. One thing that's missing here is any contrast to what the advocate was talking about. I don't remember what their data involved and entailed. I just know what your data entails, and everything that you were talking about shows either holding steady or increasing slightly. In particular, I like the analysis that you had where you said that a lot of the increase has come in a particular age group, which you then kind of infer from means that the argument about education is less true than the advocate says it was. Because if young people are going to the theater more than they did in the past and they make up a substantial portion, then it's not that they're being turned off because of educational cuts and they don't know anything about the theater. I understood that argument and I thought that made a lot of sense. All right, thank you.